The Walking Dead, flesh-eating ghouls, zombies. They're more popular now than they've ever been before. Today I'm here among the as yet unrisen dead to talk about the history of zombies, from Haiti all the way to the TV show The Walking Dead. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest. The important thing to know about zombies is they're real, at least according to practitioners of Haitian voodoo. One of the properties of voodoo is the idea that a witch doctor can raise the dead and control this undead being. In 1915, the US occupied Haiti. That's where the zombie entered popular culture. White Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi, presents a very traditional Haitian version of zombies. Bela Lugosi is a crazy guy in a castle. His name is Murder. I don't know why anybody's surprised when he does what he does.
What are you trying to do to me?
But it sort of sets the tone for a situation where a madman raises the dead, and at the end of the movie, the dead turn on him and bring him down. Before we go any further, we have to sort of define what a zombie even is in the modern day. A zombie is not a Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein monster is made up of different dead bodies. A zombie is one dead body, perhaps in a group, reanimated. A zombie is not a mummy. A mummy is a reanimated dead body that has intelligence and has a mission. Zombies are not people with rabies. Even though movies like Rabid or George Romero's The Crazies exhibit zombie-like elements, these are not dead people. These are people with a disease, and potentially they're curable. In the 50s, zombies became science fiction creatures raised from the dead by aliens. Plan 9 from Outer Space is the classic example of aliens coming to Earth and raising the dead. It wasn't until 1968 when what we know as a zombie today truly hit cinema screens. Night of the Living Dead. George Romero wasn't riffing on Haitian zombies. He wasn't riffing on voodoo. What he really was riffing on was a movie called Last Man on Earth. Basically, it was a story about one human being left in a world of vampires, and that was where Romero took his basic idea from. In Romero's movie, for the first time what we see are flesh-eating ghouls that we recognize now as zombies. Romero's original Night of the Living Dead plays with the rules in a different way. For the first time ever, zombies are killed only by destroying the brain. But in Romero's Night of the Living Dead, they run, they use tools, they even eat insects. But in this film, he establishes the most important parts. The undead are mindless. The undead are walking around for no good reason. They eat flesh. If you get bitten by one, you become one. And the only way to kill them is to destroy their brain. Night of the Living Dead was an enormous success. Unfortunately, Romero and his friends didn't copyright it properly, so the movie is now entered public domain. So they never quite got as rich off of it as they could have. George Romero wasn't intending to make a sequel, but when Italian financiers came to him and offered to give him money to make one, he went ahead and did it. The movie that resulted, Dawn of the Dead, the greatest zombie movie of all time.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
The entire movie is an incredible satire of consumerism.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
This was an important place in their lives.
As well as a gore-soaked, excellent horror film. For the first time ever, we're seeing zombies in the outfits that they were wearing when they were turned into zombies. And so there's a postman zombie, a nun zombie, a Hare Krishna zombie, a clown zombie. This really has become one of the big things. Anybody who's making a zombie movie today knows that half the fun is creating a different weird character for each of your zombies. Dawn of the Dead was a smash hit. It was released unrated. It was explicitly gory. It doesn't have a ton of sex, not a lot of anything else, but the blood flows. People loved it. Meanwhile, in Italy, the Italians were doing their own thing with it. The zombie movies the Italians made didn't always make a lot of sense. The Beyond is not necessarily a movie that has a coherent narrative.
My name is Emily. I've been looking for you.
But boy, is it full of incredible gore effects and tremendous atmosphere. Lucio Fulci made perhaps the other most famous zombie movie of all time, known in America as Zombie. Zombie has two really specifically famous, amazing moments. One is this moment where a zombie reaches through a door, grabs a woman, and impales her eye on a wood splinter. It's one of the great moments of eye trauma in all of cinema history. Perhaps the best moment in Zombie, the one that will live forever, well after our civilization is gone, is where they have a zombie fighting a shark. A real actor in zombie makeup fighting a real shark. The shark tears off a fake arm from the zombie. It's this bizarre moment where you watch and you can't even imagine the kind of cocaine-fueled madness that made somebody decide to get into a shark tank and to trade blows with an actual man-eating shark. By the beginning of the 80s, they had taken it about as far as anybody imagined you could go. Except, in New Zealand, there was a young guy named Peter Jackson who thought you could take it a whole lot farther. We know him as the guy who did Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and King Kong and Lovely Bones, his Oscar-winning Best Director, but he got his start in some really gory, really goofy, really trashy B-movies. And Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, is perhaps his masterpiece. Dead Alive is one of the goriest movies ever made, and the finale, which has our hero wading into a whole group of zombies with a lawnmower, is unbelievable. It ends with people in guts up to their knees. Meanwhile, George Romero was also continuing to work on zombie movies. His movie Day of the Dead is perhaps one of the more underrated films that he's ever made. By the time Day of the Dead happened, the zombie thing had been pretty solidified, so Romero began playing with it. In Day of the Dead, this Dr. Logan, aka Dr. Frankenstein, has a zombie that he's keeping hostage, Bub. What he's trying to do is train Bub to be a useful member of society.
They can be tricked into being good little girls and boys.
He's training him how to shave, how to use a gun, how to salute. It's pretty next generation stuff. Nobody's really picked up on what Romero was doing here. The idea that Bub the zombie remembers bits of his own life from before, that Bub the zombie could actually be the hero of the movie at the end. After Night of the Living Dead, George Romero and his producing partner broke up, and Romero took the Dead title, the producing partner got the Living Dead title, and that's where we get Return of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead is a more comedic take. It's written and directed by Dan O'Bannon, the guy that you might know best as the guy who wrote Alien. Return of the Living Dead gave us one really important piece of zombie lore. Return of the Living Dead is the first place where zombies want to eat brains specifically. Even as zombies became synonymous with The Walking Dead, the gut-munching ghouls, there was one movie that went back to the Haitian voodoo roots. That's Wes Craven's Serpent in the Rainbow.
Don't let them bury me.
It's not necessarily the most successful movie, but it's a movie that really is unusual in the time because I can't think of that many other films that tackle the Haitian voodoo stuff in the way that Craven does in Serpent in the Rainbow. It also has a guy getting his dick nailed to a chair, which is, you know, a thing. Towards the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, the whole zombie thing began to sort of fade away. But zombies were primed for a comeback. And I think we can look at where that comeback is, and it probably is 28 days later. Danny Boyle, who had found his career sort of in a weird place, went back to England and made a low-budget movie, one of the first digital movies to play in theaters. And 28 days later, maybe technically isn't a zombie movie. We can really argue about that, because this is a movie where it isn't necessarily the dead that walk. It's sort of a rabies-type situation. People get a disease that makes them rage-filled. They bite you, you get it. It fits just enough of the zombie stuff to really work. That was followed up by Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's remake of Romero's original movie. Now here's the thing, Dawn of the Dead, the remake, is an R-rated movie. It's never gonna be as good as the original gory Dawn of the Dead. After 28 days later, and its sequel 28 weeks later, and Dawn of the Dead, zombies were back in a really big way. The Resident Evil movies have done their own weird version of zombies. George Romero got back in the game. First he made Land of the Dead. That was followed up by Diary of the Dead, which I think is his least successful of all the zombie movies. His latest zombie movie, perhaps his last, is Survival of the Dead. A lot of people don't like this movie. I like it a lot. Romero's films have always been the deepest, the most interesting, had the most thematically going on.
We gotta get these things to learn to eat something other than us.
As this was all happening, Robert Kirkman, a comic book writer, had an idea. That idea was George Romero's Zombies. Basically, his comic book, The Walking Dead, one of the most successful comic books possibly in history, is a long-form retelling of everything George Romero's ever done. Kirkman's book was quickly optioned, and AMC started a new series, The Walking Dead. Now, I'm gonna be very honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of The Walking Dead, the TV series. On the one hand, I'm amazed that the kind of gore and violence they get away with on television is allowed. This is stuff that George Romero couldn't get into a movie back in the 80s and the 70s. The Walking Dead is one of the biggest shows on television. It's kind of unbelievable. It's bigger than some network sitcoms. And so this means that the zombie is not just here, he's here to stay. What is it about zombies that people love? I know for me, part of it always growing up was the idea of these were the most extreme movies you could see. You knew that you had to be a really hardcore horror fan to be into zombie films. We're talking about people having their intestines torn out. Today, I think what really people like about zombie movies is that we're living in a pretty screwed up world, and the zombie movie presents some kind of a post-apocalyptic survival scenario. It's the idea of being tested, of being in a place where things suddenly get simple. There's something that we kind of like about that.
They must be destroyed.
What's your favorite zombie movie? Are you one of those rare people who prefer the Haitian voodoo zombies? Are you a George Romero diehard? Do you like fast zombies or slow zombies? I'm not that big on The Walking Dead. Are you a diehard Walking Dead viewer? Subscribe so you don't miss a single episode going forward. Share it with all your friends. I'll be back here again next week. I'll be someplace totally different doing something just as badass as this. My name is Devin Faraci, and this is Badass Digest.
Get your film fix. Subscribe to Cinefix.